Welcome back. We're going to talk about non-negotiables. And this is one of the most important things I've done in my life when moving forward to creating the relationship and how I find my wife. In fact, one of the things that ended up happening was that we both had non-negotiable lists, but we didn't know that we had non-negotiable lists. So when we met each other, we were checking off to make sure that we weren't part of that non-negotiable list. And one day, I mentioned something about having a non-negotiable, and she said, I have a non-negotiable too. So we both came together and looked at our non-negotiables and realized that we both shared everything that we wanted in a relationship, that there was, we didn't meet none of the non-negotiables. Well, there was one thing that I thought was a non-negotiable, and I wanted someone to be bilingual because I like writing poetry in Spanish and stuff like that. But then I realized that it wasn't really a non-negotiable, and language is something you can learn anyways, but it wasn't something that was truly part of my non-negotiable. It was just something in my list. But everything else that was truly a non-negotiable, she met it, and I met all the things that were part of her non-negotiables. And why is that even important, and why is that so powerful? Again, when you first meet someone, you're in a state of being high. You're in a state of all these chemicals going through your system, where you don't really can't think rationally. They say that your chemical state is one of schizophrenia when you first meet someone and when you fall in that love feeling. So what happens is that you don't see people for who they are because you're kind of blinded to a certain degree. So what non-negotiable list does is that it helps you through that process where you're going to be able to look at a list and say, okay, they're not meeting some of these non-negotiables. And that'll help you get out of a relationship quickly so you don't make the mistake of truly being impacted long-term, wasting time and things like that in a relationship. And they just ended up getting hurt because they're not going to meet your needs if they're part of your non-negotiables. So it's very, very important. Also, if you're currently in a relationship, you can use the non-negotiables to truly understand what's important for your partner. Because they might have something that's a non-negotiable that's very important to them that might not be that important to you. That might be something simple that you might be able to compromise and change. And at the same time, by having a non-negotiable list for them, it might be something that you might be able to show them and that they could understand what's truly important for you. Because again, we're not mind readers. And if we understand our partner, the better we understand them, the better relationship we're going to be able to have with them. So just keep that in mind. So what is a non-negotiable? Non-negotiable list is things that you will not settle in life for anything. This is things that are so important to you that you are not willing to settle, to say, I will be willing to live with this long term. You might put up with it short term, but in your core, it's not something that you're going to want long term. So again, it could be something as, I don't want someone physically abusive or emotionally abusive. It can be someone like, I want somebody, it has to be someone that meets my emotional needs as far as where I can talk to them and I can truly express myself and they will listen and respect my point of view. It can be somebody who's cuddly, somebody who loves to snuggle with you at night and cuddle. It could be somebody who's a gentleman or somebody who's whatever. It can be so many different things that for someone it can be important and for someone it might not. Again, that's part of the flexibility that somebody might have with the non-negotiables, but with the non-negotiables is something that they're not willing to change. So the way that you start is that you create a list of things that you don't want. You write everything that you can think of that you don't want in a relationship. And as you create that list, once you're done writing it down, then give it a couple of days. Step back, give it a couple of days, and then come back to it. And when you come back to it, look at everything you've written and truly assess if it's non-negotiable. If the person was amazing in every single way, are you willing to live with this for the rest of your life? Because it might be somebody might say, it's a non-negotiable for me to want to live in like the country because I want to be in the city for the rest of my life. And then they meet this amazing person that meets everything else in their need and they want to be able to live in the country. And you might be able to say, well, they meet all my needs and we can always travel to the city for vacations and stuff like that. So, I'm willing to compromise for that. So it might not be a non-negotiable. It might be that for you, a non-negotiable might be spending the holidays with your family. but then, this person also is very connected to their family. And once you really connect with them, you might be able to compromise and split holidays or even bring both families together. So again, you're going to write a list of everything that's important to you, things that you are not willing to compromise in. And then have a couple days, assess it, reassess it, and then next to them write which ones are the non-negotiables and cross out the other ones. And then I would wait a couple more days. Let it fester in your mind, let it process, and then come back and really look at them again and see if they're truly non-negotiables. And if they are, you leave them there, because what's going to happen is that when you meet someone, if you're not in a relationship, is that when you start dating, go back to those non-negotiables and start assessing it. And most people, you don't want to show someone your non-negotiables from the get-go. Say, hey, I'm truly enjoying our time together, but I want to go over the non-negotiables that I have. Because what happens, people will fit into what they think you want them to be, especially initially in the relationship. So you don't want them to know your non-negotiables. You want to find out naturally what their priorities are. And I see this in relationships all the time, where people want somebody to be something, so they'll tell them, well, I can't, if you don't do this, well, and they'll start calling all the time, whatever it is. Step back sometimes early in a relationship. Let the person be. That's the best way that you know what the person's about. You know if the person actually reaches out and does something. You know if they're willing to call you, if they're willing to be there for you, if they're willing to listen, whatever it may be, if they're willing to compromise. These are the things that you have to let someone just be and see what happens. And then see if they're going to be willing to fit into those non-negotiables. Another thing is with non-negotiables that sometimes people say, well, they're great, they're awesome, I love everything about them. They don't meet these 3 non-negotiables, but I know they'll change. And I hate to tell people this, but when relationships keep developing, bad things or things that they don't like about the other person don't seem to get better for the most part. They are amplified. Because we have the best face on when we first meet someone. So they tend to get worse. So when you start dating someone, for example, and their non-negotiables, if they don't meet 2 of your non-negotiables, run. It's time to get out of there, because realistically, it's not going to work. You can't make someone else change. And if they're truly your non-negotiables, then it's not going to work. And you might find 2 things. You might find that they weren't your non-negotiable and you're willing to compromise. So if that's the case, they were truly your non-negotiables. Or you're going to find that you spend 2 or 3 years in a relationship and then the relationship goes downhill. You feel terrible. You feel like, 3 years out of your life just went by. Your perspective is different. Your confidence level might be impacted, whatever it may be, but there's negative consequences because you didn't listen to the reality that these were your non-negotiable. And really having non-negotiable gives you one thing. It's the confidence of knowing what you want, not wasting time, just settling in life, and then realizing that you're settling and then having to change the situation. And again, if you are in a relationship and the person is not meeting your non-negotiables, you're in a serious relationship and you've been in that relationship, maybe sitting down with the person and truly understanding it to see if there's a compromise, to see if by them understanding how important it is to you, if both parties can come together and come to a compromise where that non-negotiable somebody else might understand, because they never really thought how the impact it might have on you. And that can happen, that can happen, but you can't expect someone else to change. If they're not willing to make those changes, then it might be something that the relationship might not work. And that's just part of the process sometimes. But again, non-negotiables are very important to understand yourself, to understand what your priorities are, to understand what you're willing to settle with, to understand what you're not willing to settle with, and what you want out of your life. Because whether it's 2 years or 5 years from now, unless you're meeting those non-negotiables in a relationship, they will come back to haunt you. So it's important to have those to give you the confidence in moving forward in a relationship, knowing that the person is meeting your needs and you're meeting their needs when it comes to truly knowing what you want and really getting to the point that you're not settling in life, that you're in the relationship because you truly want to and know that you can grow with it. So I hope that helps. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.